What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another day, another dollar with your boy. We're gonna be breaking down the futures contract today. Gonna make it relatively quick. Not gonna try to take too much of your time. I do, however, want to kind of touch on a few psychological things today. One of them being going on tilt. Okay, as traders, we all kind of go through this state of mind where we're doing okay, making good money. And then we have one loss that kind of sets us back a little bit, and then from that point we kind of have a very difficult time recovering. Well, that was me last week, right? I had a pretty decent loss last week, closing out the end of the week. Lost a good chunk, and then coming through this week was making back a good little bit, kind of getting my feet back underneath me, gaining some confidence. And then today I took another relatively large loss and then went on tilt by trying to gain it back by just picking up size and taking trades that I should not have been taking. I should have been I should have stepped away from the market after I took the loss, reassessed. Should have kind of found some way to find or recognize when I'm going on tilt and prevent myself from making any more of the foolish trades that I'd been taking. Now, the initial trade that I took that caused a loss, I'm not upset about the trade idea or that I lost on it. And initially, it's the trades that I took after that kind of get to me. Things that I know I shouldn't be doing. It's like, when you're a kid, your mom tells you not to touch the stove because it's hot, and you go up to it and you touch the stove anyway, right? It's like one of those things where you shouldn't do it, but you know better than to do it, and you still do it anyway. And today, I've been struggling. It's just one of those things. Mentally, I've been struggling a lot recently. It's one of those things you got to be aware of when you're in a market like this, and try not to, or in a hobby or profession, however you want to look at this as. Whenever you're bringing it to the table, it's a lot to deal with, especially if you're someone who does struggle mentally, with depression, anxiety, and things of that nature. And I'm not saying that's any reason for the way I acted today and taking the trades I took. However, it definitely does not help or add to better yourself, right? So if you're out there struggling a little bit, it's not a bad idea to take some time away from the markets, and I think that's what I'm going to look to do closing out the end of this month. I think I'm just going to kind of step away, let the end of the month wrap it up, and then look to kind of restart fresh in October. Just kind of get the mental game reset. The market's still going to be here. There's still going to be opportunities to take. Volatility is going to be here one way or another. And I got it. So there may be maybe less videos coming out. I'll try to, if anything, go through technical analysis and so on and so forth. So enough about my rant on all that. Let's get into what happened today, more or less. Let's start with the ES. Okay, we'll start with the SPY, the S&P 500 here. So we opened up, or yesterday we closed out pretty strong to the downside, right? Yesterday we probed to the downside. We had a price spike and price probe, and pushed lower pretty good for the most part yesterday. And then today we open up inside the price spike and take back that little bit of set of single prints, and then we work our way back into the previous day's range, right? We open up inside previous day's range and then worked our way into the upper distribution from yesterday. One thing to note is when we did push up, there really wasn't a whole lot of extension that we were getting, right? In the first two time frames, we had some pretty good extension. Shorts were covering, you had a little bit of momentum buying, and there was a prevailing bid. Early on, we had a set of single prints in B period, and then we had a set in C. They got filled right away in D period. But notice how the extension from A's high to B's high, right? Good extension. From B's high to C's high, good extension. Now, the highs start to get a little less from C to D, and then from D to E. Not very high, or not very good pushes to the upside, right? So showing a sign of slowing down in the bid. So when we pulled back, obviously, yes, you could have taken longs against the single print fill. But more or less, I was looking to short this market on pushes up against the high here. I was more or less looking to see if this market would be rotational. That was more so for the NASDAQ than it was for ES. Should have been looking for it more in ES versus the NASDAQ, just because of the fact that we hadn't taken out the previous day's high. There were other things in the buyer's favor, but we were still in the previous day's range. And really wasn't finding much acceptance in the upper distribution from the previous day. So we eventually ended up rolling over, and these buyers that were up here, short-term traders, man, they just kind of they move this market like it is nothing sometimes, and it definitely surprises me. And I found myself today asking, why would they do that? It makes no sense. Okay, and if you're thinking like that, then that's kind of one of the signs I should have looked for. Was makes no sense. If it should make sense, right? Price is going to move no matter what I think is going to happen. But I definitely wasn't expecting this day to go the way it did. Sellers, once the bid kind of fell out from under, sellers regained their position, pushed price lower, tried to go trend, didn't hold it, shot back up real aggressively, only to get slammed back down aggressively, right? So sellers got absorbed down here as it dried out, pushed up really aggressive. More sellers stepped back into the market, slammed it back down, took out the poor low here. So we go out today in the ES with today's high, today's low, and a price probe. Price probe 43.6275. Today's low 43.5725. High of day 43.99, and afternoon rally high above us from yesterday 44.0775. 44.1850 previous day's high. And then we have a massive gap. I need to get rid of that afternoon pullback low. We have a pretty decent sized gap that fills at 44.46. So still holding the gap 2 days in a row now. ES is still one time framing down. We took out the previous day's low. So we ended up continuing to one time frame down. One thing to note also is extension from the previous day's low. Not very much, right? 13 points, good, but it's not the best. It's not what you want to see as a seller. Sellers, you definitely wanted to see us, hold below the previous day's upper distribution and then drive lower, right? That's what you wanted to see as a seller. So sellers still in control in the ES. However, NASDAQ put themselves back into a balance by taking out the previous day's high. They did the exact same thing we did, opened up inside of the previous day's range. However, they opened up above their price spike and their price probe. So they were a little bit more positive. They took out their overnight high relatively quickly, and then they drove straight up. And then once they get to moving and squeezing pretty quickly, they move. And they moved up really quickly. Had a little bit of struggle earlier on in C and D time frames. Looked above in E. Got above the previous day's high and didn't find much extension. That's one thing you want to notice, right? The extension was not very high, only 7 points. So they didn't get much of a push into that gap that fills at 147. So they got about 125 point gap to the upside that needs to get filled. They pushed into it the first time and failed to get any good extension into that gap. Now, where I got involved today was on the short side initially. And I was very, very happy with how I handled the trade on the short side late in the day. I didn't get involved on the long, right? NASDAQ was holding 2 sets of single prints, one very small down here, very small set, and then the larger set from C period right in this range, right? We were holding a set of single prints. So where I got involved on the short side was once we set that high in E period, didn't get much extension. F period pulled back. We pushed back up to the high, and we could not set higher highs in the NASDAQ. I was looking to get short in the next time frame, right? I was like, all right, if we take out G's low and we get below the 144 simple moving average, right? Something I always look at. If we get below this 144 simple moving average, I will look to get short this market, right? So, and that's exactly what happened. We took out G's low at 15,001. That was right around what the 144 simple moving average was. But once I seen that get below it, I took the trade. I got in the short side, a 5 lot, and my target was right here at F's low, F71, just before we got into the single prints, because I didn't know if they were going to pull back, hold it, and then rotate back higher. So that was my target. I wanted to get involved there. And as we pulled in, we came in pretty aggressively early on, and I got out of the trade right where I wanted. I had my bid set in at 73, just above where the single print starts. So, I wasn't going to miss out on too much there. So I got involved on the short side, and, the market was relatively strong early on in NASDAQ, but they began to give it up, right? And I was looking to get out of the trade at that point. I didn't know what they were going to do, so I got out of the trade, made my money early on really well. And then they did eventually fill the single prints. Once they filled the single prints, I was looking to get long right around where the other set filled, which was a very small set. 52 to 50 was a very small set. So I said, all right, if we push down into that area, I'll look to get long, because I'm not expecting this market to go and take out the day's low and then, get the previous day's low, especially after, taking out the previous day's high, putting it back into a balance. I was like, okay, I'll look to get long on the single print fill. So we filled the single prints. We pushed up a little bit initially. I got long 60, which was right around this high volume node here. I got long 60, and my stop was below the opening, okay? So I was risking a pretty good amount. I was risking about 30 points to the downside, and I got long initially a 5 lot, and then I got long another 5 lot on the pullback. We had gotten just above the open. We were holding half back at the time, which was right around 40. So, I was out the money a little bit. My average price was sitting around 50. And we took out the open by we got to the open and took it out by about a point. So we took out the open. I got stopped out of my trade, and I was upset because I gave back some money and then some, due to the fact that I had larger size on. I actually ended up adding more size, because we were holding above the open. I was like, okay, they'll hold it. They'll rotate back up to the point of control, which was at 82. That was not the case. So I got stopped out of the trade for a loss. We continue to liquidate again, and I'm sitting here looking, okay, I'm still not expecting us to take out the day's low. I'm sitting on tilt a little bit. I just took a little bit of a hit, and I'm like, what's this market going to do? I once again get long right here. Want to say 920? Yeah, 920 I think is what my price was. 920 is where I got long again, looking for this market to hopefully rotate back up and get back to that point of control. Well, we continued to liquidate even further. I had my stop even further below at the day's low, because I was like, there's no way they'll go and get that. Well, sure enough, they went and got that. I got stopped out once more. And, at that point, I just shut it down, stepped away, didn't do anything else. I lost a pretty decent amount today on those two trades, just trying to take the long. Now, the better trade would have been after we took out the day's low, seeing that we weren't getting much extension below it and we didn't hold single prints. Right here in K period, I could have gotten long, in L once we took out K's high, because we did that. All the shorts that were down here thinking this market was going to do what we did the previous day, and the day before that, which was just push lower. They got out by getting stopped out. The market pushed up, and that would have been a much better trade. But instead, I got involved, let my emotions get involved, and got hurt. NASDAQ ends up going out with today's high, afternoon rally high in L period. Some people say it's too late in the day for that to be an afternoon rally high. I think it's just a really good reference point, even the fact that they couldn't get back to that 82.25 point of control at the time. So 78.75 afternoon rally high of day 15.027.50. And then they have today's low at 14.852.50. Below that, they have 14.847.50 afternoon pullback low. Below that, they have 14.7 792.75. So NASDAQ is in a 2-day balance currently. Basically, all of today's range is their balance. If we open up inside that come Monday, you can expect some pretty good chop. If we open above it, you should go and fill this gap. And at that point, market could be going from balance to up in the NASDAQ. Let's go ahead and look at their larger time frames. And yes, this is one of those longer videos. So if you've made it this far, please leave a like on the video, just because you are a trooper. And thank you guys for support and watching. So ES, let's look at their monthly balance real quick. So this is our daily time frame within our ES monthly balance. And so far, we got within roughly 20 points. Actually, we got, what is that? Today, 57.25. We got within 7 points of a monthly balance low so far. So keep that in mind. We got within 7 points of a monthly balance low. If we pay attention to our monthly, or not our monthly, if we pay attention to our balance rules, there are only 3 rules, right? You get near a balance low, hold it, rotate higher. Get to the balance low and push just slightly below it, fell and rotate higher. Or you push through two through and away from the balance, right? So right now we are just hovering right above that monthly balance low. Coming towards the end of the month, we only have next week's trading week, and then we will be potentially saying that this monthly is one time framing down. So still one time framing down on the daily time frame within that monthly balance. Now let's go ahead and look at our weekly time frame. Weekly, one time framing down. Haven't looked at ES in a while since the rollover, but weeklies, one time framing down. We took out that balance low a couple days back. Been one time framing down pretty good. Your next downside destination is that 43. Should be 43.50, but once again, this is the rollover. So, yeah, 43.50. I don't know why that looks so different. We'll look at SPY because those tend to be just way more accurate, especially since they don't have to deal with rollovers and things of that nature. So let's look at the daily. Daily, been one time framing down 1, 2, 3 days in a row. Massive gap above us in SPY, right? We have a gap above, one time framing down 3 days in a row. You are in an area, right? An area where we did have previous balance, or getting near an area where we had a previous balance. So could we potentially find some type of hold within this area here? You have the 200-day moving average below us at 418. Not saying we'll get there in one shot, but it is a good possibility we will go. If this market continues to push down lower, there is a good possibility we could continue to liquidate lower and test that 200-day moving average, right? But keep an eye on this area that I have highlighted here. This was a previous balance area. Let's see, and that was the initial cost basis for this move up here. We held it here, pushed up higher. But one thing I wanted to continue to you guys to keep in mind is the lower highs here. That series of lower highs. We are seeing a lower high, lower high, lower low, lower high. Could this be our next lower low, lower high, lower low, right? So daily continues to one time frame down. Let's look at our weekly. Weekly, one time framing down, coming out of that double inside week to the downside. Really good extension so far. So if you sold 49 or 42, you are in the money pretty good. $10 here. I would probably be looking to take some profits. However, next downside destination for the weekly time frame would be this week's low of 425.82. So that'll be your next weekly destination on the downside. So next week, do we take out this week's low and continue to one time frame down? Or do we have an inside week and then eventually put ourselves back into a balance? Those are things we got to look out for. Monthly. So for SPY, we are down on the monthly in SPY currently. All right. Now, if we come back in and close above 433.01, then we'll just say that the monthly is stretched and we're still in balance. However, if we continue to push lower and close below 433 on on our monthly candle here, Jesus, English. We close lower on our monthly candle here by a pretty good margin, then I will say that the monthly is down. Right now, we're only down about $3 below that. So if we continue to push lower, this market will be down on the monthly, and you'll be targeting this low here, 416.79, which just so happens to be where the 200-day moving average is at. All right. And triple Qs. We'll start with the monthly since we're already here. Qs still in a balance. Okay, still in a balance on their monthly, right? They're getting near their balance low, 54.71. They're within $3 of it. If we push any further and get below it and close below it by a good margin, the monthly will be down. But for now, monthly is still in a balance. That means, right, we are near that balance low for these other time frames in the weekly, right? So we can get near that balance low, hold it, and rotate up higher, right? That's just how it works, kind of ping pong inside here. So let's see how we react once we get any closer. Is this all we wanted to do, was get near that and then rotate up higher for the Qs? That is a good question. Weekly, one time frame down. Next target for the weekly time frame would be the low of 354.71, that monthly balance low. So we get that monthly balance low. That is the next target for the weekly time frame. Will we get it? Daily. Pretty good size gap here. Pretty good size gap. We are in a 2-day balance on the daily time frame. So let's go ahead and adjust this. We're in a 2-day balance on the daily time frame. With a gap above. 2-day balance, right? Just chop it around inside this balance. If we open up inside this Monday and take it out to the downside, we will one time frame down again. If we take it out to the upside, we will be one time framing up, and you'll look to fill the gap at 364.46, right? Q's 200-day moving average is much, much lower, down at 328.43. Not thinking we're going to get there anytime soon. So that might not be in the books. However, SPY is different. SPY could get there if they chose to. So keep that in mind going into next week, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Once again, keep your hard hats on. Use your stops. Try not to go on tilt. Keep an eye on your mental, and hopefully you have some capital. With all that being said, thanks again for your support. Catch you in the next one. See you.